my name is Candace Giesbrecht, and I'm the director of the Remote Performance Academy with teamit.com. And I am here today with Dr. Laura Hambley. Laura, your bio takes up like an entire page, and so I'm actually just going to ask you, just tell us a little bit about who you are and the kind of work that you do on a daily basis.
Sure. So I am a workplace psychologist. I specialize in helping build better cultures and high-performing organizations, and we do so through leaders, better leadership, better team dynamics, and healthier cultures. And I work a lot at the intersection of workplace and life, because we're all human beings in the end of the day, and given what we've all been through, I'd say psychology is more important than ever.
Yeah, wow. And Laura, you and the team at Humance and Work Evolution are strategic partners of Teamits, and we just love working together with you in this important work with organizations. Dr. Laura Hambley and also Dr. Tom O'Neill are also remote work and distributed work pioneers. And you started your research in distributed work 18 years ago, I think. Is that right?
Yeah. I just saw a need to build higher performing, stronger, better leaders when you're leading from a distance. And a pioneer is definitely what we were.
Yeah. So who knew that we would be where we are right now? And my purpose today, and thank you so much for responding to my little bat signal that I put out and said, I just love to chat with you about this post that we saw that was put out by Hootsuite. And so Hootsuite, a very big and successful tech company. And often what happens when a big tech company like Hootsuite takes a bold move and publishes what they're up to, a lot of other tech companies sit up and pay attention. And sometimes there's a lot of pressure that can come with that. Oh man, this is what they're doing now. Now, can I do something like this? Do I need to do something like this? And so I'm hoping that we can just maybe step through a couple of the headlines that are in this, and that we could get a little bit of not just your reaction, but also maybe some tips that you have for people who are maybe don't necessarily have all the resources that Hootsuite might have. So thanks so much for saying yes to this.
No problem.
Okay. So in the blog post that was posted on May 27th, 2021, Hootsuite, I mean, the headline says, "We're shutting down the entire company for a full week, and here's why." And they go, their first bullet here is, "Our collective mental health is suffering." Laura, do you agree with that?
With the concept of shutting down for a whole week?
Actually, I'm thinking about the collective mental health suffering. Do you agree with that headline?
Shut down a week. Yeah, I'd say that yes, definitely. All the data has been pointing to a decline in mental health and well-being throughout the pandemic. And it's not that, okay, people have vaccines now, everything's good, we're back to normal. Oftentimes when you have a prolonged period of uncertainty, fear, stress, it doesn't just end all of a sudden. Sometimes we can see those effects go on and on after everything seems back to normal. But it takes a while to get back to normal. And what will normal be, right? The future of work is being determined by organizations as we speak. So yeah, I think it is a time to be very, very mindful of mental health and well-being.
Yeah. And so through the blog post, and we'll definitely attach a link to the original post, so people can have a look at this. But in addition to shutting down for a week, they're announcing tons of benefits, including culturally aware counseling, trauma-informed practice, increases in terms of, sort of financial rewards and so on. There's a lot of companies who maybe don't have the same resources as Hootsuite and maybe not able to do all of the same. If people are listening to this and they're an employer, what are some of the ways that they could be attending to this concern around their employees' mental health?
Well, first of all, getting the data, asking people, doing pulse surveys, doing mental health checks or pulse surveys that are a confidential way to collect data in real time. I mean, we hear about annual engagement surveys that can delve into stress and resilience and mental health aspects, but it's usually very, very surface level. So I think asking the questions a little deeper, at more regular interviews intervals, because 3 months ago things were very different than they are today, right? So we got to get data in real time about what is going on for people.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And then just as you were saying, the data 3 months ago would have been different than it is today. It's likely going to be different again 3 months from now, and so it does definitely make the case to look at those to look at the data. The next headline here, or subheading in the blog post, is organizations have a responsibility to prioritize mental health. That's a pretty bold statement. Do you agree with that?
I think it's a dual responsibility. I think organizations have a responsibility to support it, to support people, because we are human beings, each and every one of us, you and I, and also to ensure that leaders are managing in a healthy way and to be on the lookout for bad leaders, because bad leaders impact mental health. And we don't talk about that enough. It's not like the organization as a whole. I mean, my experience of work is, what is it like working for my boss, right? And is my boss a great leader, or are they a toxic leader? So we need to be, as organizations, as executives, CEOs, we need to be really cognizant of, how do we know if there are bad leaders out there, and how do we get rid of that, because that's impacting health.
Yeah, and what I know, and I've learned from you and from your research, is that everything that was required of leadership when we were face to face is still required, but there's all these additional things, additional or different, that's required when we're working apart. And I know that's a big part of your work, to not only assess that, but then to coach and to train these leaders on especially where there's additional or different that's required. And so, just in a brief way, because I know you could talk about this for hours, but what are some of those differences when somebody's leading while apart than compared to when they're face to face?
Well, you can't see the signs of someone in distress as easily. So you have to be very, very cognizant of that. You have to not keep rescheduling your one-on-ones. You need to have your one-on-ones. You need to have your video, and you need to have your video centered and good lighting so that you can see the facial cues. There's so many people who don't know how to set up video properly, even after a year and a half of Zooming to death. So, and I'd say the other thing is, it's a dual responsibility, I said earlier, because people need to be responsible for their own mental health as well. So what I do after my working hours, that's my responsibility. It's my responsibility to put this cell phone away and not keep it in my bedroom and be checking email at 10 at night. Those are my responsibilities, but organizations need to support that as well by ensuring that leaders are not the ones sending me an email at 10 at night, right? That we have some policies and guidelines around that. And I think Hootsuite shutting down for a week is just a way to say, let's get more centered on our health, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, whatever health looks like for you, and do a good job of resetting. And I think kudos to them. That is awesome.
Yeah, and I've heard you talk about this in the past, Laura, just that you cite that example of the importance of keeping those, not first of all having the one-to-ones, but then also keeping them. And when I've heard you sort of, really teach to that piece and the importance of it, it gets at trust, and it gets at the psychological contract that we have with our employees. I mean, we have this financial contract where you do the work and then we pay you, as employers and with employees. But there's also a psychological contract that we have. I wonder if you could speak to that concept just a little bit more and what that means to you.
Oh, wow. So a psychological contract, it can be easily damaged. It's tougher to rebuild once it's damaged, and it's hidden. So you don't really know when a psychological contract has been damaged. Sometimes there's just no signs of it, but the person's looking for a job, right? Or they're half in the game. So what you need is strong leaders who are trained, developed, and supported to lead in a healthy, inspiring way, and then the contracts won't get damaged because you're having the conversation regularly. How are you doing? What are you challenged here? What would make you want to be here in 5 years from now, Candace? Right? And listening to the answer. Most leaders are not good listeners. Seriously, most leaders are not good listeners. So that's half the battle in itself.
Yeah. Laura, thanks so much for taking a little bit of time to give us your reactions. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to share for anybody who's clicked on this and for anyone who's listening?
Mental health is a complex and multi-pronged topic, but a very, very important one. And there's a lot of practices out there, but you need a culture that supports it and leaders that support and grow mental health, not damage it.
Yeah. If people want to follow up with you, Laura, as a result of this, how can they reach you?
Absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn, Dr. Laura Hambley Lovett. I play a lot on LinkedIn, but I'm also at lhambley@humance.ca. So Humance is my company.
Okay. Thanks again for your time, Laura.
Thanks, Candace.